Hello, everyone. Hello, hi. How are you all? How is everybody doing today? It's great to see everybody. Can you hear me? Can you see me? It's great. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. It is morning where I am. Hello, everyone. If you can hear me or see me, type hello in the chat. Tell me where you're from. It's great to see everybody here today. Let's see. Who can hear me today? Well, it's summertime where I am in the northern hemisphere. I am in the United States. Specifically, I am in Illinois today, and it is summertime here. So, where is it where you are? Is it summertime? Is it wintertime? Let's see. Oh, people can hear me. Excellent. That's wonderful. Let's see. Where's everybody from? Oh, hello from Brazil. Excellent. Hello, Turkey. Hi, everybody. It's great to see you all here with me today. Well, in summertime, there's a lot of specific activities we can do outside. It's very warm out where I am right now. Warm and what we call muggy. So, what do you like to do in the summertime? What are your favorite things to do in the summertime? Let's see. Oh, I'm seeing lots of people. Hello, Sri Lanka, Taiwan. Hello, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Turkey. Hello, wonderful. Sudan. That's great. Brazil. Wonderful. Excellent. Well, so great to see everybody. What do you all like to do in the summertime? I like to go out and swim. I like to swim a lot in the summertime. So, we're people from Turkey. Wonderful. Visiting new countries and exploring. That's great. Uh, let's see. Oh, thunderstorms. Oh no. Yeah, thunderstorms are those are tough. We get a lot of those in the Midwest here in the United States as well. Hello, South Korea. Swimming as well. Wonderful. London. Hello. Excellent. Turkey. Very good. Venezuela. Wonderful. A teacher. That's great. All right. Sunning. Excellent. Yeah. In the United States, we call that tanning as well. So that's great. All right. We'll wait just a couple more minutes, let some more people join, and then we'll go ahead and get started with our lesson today. Remember, if you have to leave early or if you miss any of our lesson today, you can go back and watch this lesson on the YouTube channel, the Campbell YouTube channel, and you can see this one and then hundreds of other lessons as well. So if you miss any part today, feel free to go back and rewatch that lesson, or if you have any other different types of lessons you'd like to see. So excellent. All right. Well, it's so great to see everybody. Surfing, a lot of surfing. I've only surfed one time. I don't live near the ocean, so it's hard to surf otherwise. That's excellent. All right. We do. We have a lot of students today. It is great to see everybody. I hope this will be a helpful and informative lesson today. It's a little bit going back to a little bit more of the basics of English and the words that we're using and why we use them. So that's excellent. All right. So it looks like everyone's here right now. So let's go ahead and get started. So today we are going to talk about modal verbs. So modal verbs are something that we've probably seen a lot before, but we're going to talk about why we use them and when we use them. So what we use modal verbs for is they show us four different things. They show us a possibility, they show us intent, they show us ability, or they show us necessity. So we're going to use these verbs to inform the main verb of a sentence. So modal verbs are verbs themselves, but they're only going to be used to inform the main verb. Okay? So, for example, if we have the sentence, he can have my pizza. Okay? He can have my pizza. That is going to be the can will be our modal verb, and it will inform have. Okay, so it shows us here a possibility or an intent. He can have my pizza, right? If we say he has my pizza, right? There's no intent there. There's no possibility. That's just something. I have a bottle, right? But if I say you can have my bottle, that is some sort of future intent. Okay, so that's what we're going to use these modal verbs for. They're going to inform this main verb. and it will always have a main verb. This is why we call our modal verbs helper verbs, or you may have heard them as auxiliary verbs before. But they're all called modal verbs because we're going to use them to help explain the main verb. So, when we look at a modal verb, we're going to always use them before the main verb. It's always going to go before the main verb. And we're going to use the main verb in the infinitive form. So remember infinitive, right? To try, to drink, to run. That's the infinitive. It's always going to be in that base infinitive form. Our main verb is, and our modal verb will go before that. So we cannot use these modal verbs alone, right? We cannot use these modal verbs alone. They must be used in a sentence with the main verb. But there is one exception, okay? There is one exception. That is if the sentence before it implies the meaning of that sentence, okay? So, and inform here, right? Inform means to explain. That's exactly right. To explain what's happening here, to inform someone. So, for example, if we say, will you go to the store tomorrow? I can say, yes, I will. This is still a modal verb. We're still using it to inform the main verb, which is go. But because it's used in a sentence, that means we can imply the meaning. That means we can imply that they will say, yes, I will go. Because that's what implies means. It means we know that the meaning, the answer to this question, we can say, yes, I will go, but we don't have to use the word go. So that's the only example. And there's another lesson on this talking about implied statements, where it usually comes when you're having a conversation with someone and you can imply the meaning of that verb, the meaning of the word afterwards without saying it. Okay? So, yes, I will go, but we don't need to say go. So, otherwise, we must use the modal verb before a main verb and have to use the main verb. So, for example, I must find my car keys. Right? I must find my car keys. Must is our modal, and find is going to be our main verb. So this is where we're using them before. And we'll get into more of what these modal verbs are and what they mean. But for now, just notice that we're going to use the modal verbs before our main verb, and they're going to inform them, right? They're going to inform them. Our main verb is always going to be in the infinitive test, and our modal is always going to go before that. And one thing to note is for our pure modal verbs, we're never going to change our form or tense of our modal verb. It's always, there's never going to have an S, never an ing, and never an ed in our pure modal verbs. I am going to show you one semi-modal verb that we will talk about that will sometimes have an S at the end of it. And remember, the purpose of our modal verbs is to show a hypothetical condition, something that may or may not happen, and something that's very likely to happen. Okay? So that's what we're going to do. The question structure, yes, we will get into the question structure of modals. Because with the question structure, it's always going to go at the beginning. The modal will go at the beginning of the sentence. But I have a couple examples of questions, and we can talk about the structure of a question in modal verbs. So remember, right, this is the basis idea of our modal verbs. We're going to put it before the main verb. We're going to have the main verb in the infinitive form, and we're not going to change the ending of it. All right, that's structure for all of our modal verbs. So let's take a look at some of our more popular modal verbs. There are multiple modal verbs, but there are some that are more popular than others. So I have 9 main modal verbs. Okay, so in our first one, the way we can think about our modal verbs as well is to think about our possibility. It's very much going to happen, or it might not happen. So in our first modal verb is must. So must is what we consider an obligation or something that has to be done. Something that you have to do we're going to use must. So for example, you must be home by 10 p.m. Right? We must be home by 10 p.m. That's an obligation. That's 100% certainty. Okay, 100% is going to happen. You must be home by 10 p.m. So that is what we're going to use for must. It will happen. Okay? So another example, we could say he must be tired from walking. He must be tired. Something that's very much going to happen. Very much going to happen. So where is have to? So we have to is also a semi-modal verb that you can use as well. You have to, I have to, he has to. But that's not as common. We have had better there as well. But we'll talk about that in a second. So he must be. So remember, our modal verb goes before our main verb. So to be here is our main verb. Can we use another word than must? That's a good question. Yes, you could say need. He needs to. But that again, that's a semi-modal verb. So some of these verbs can go up and down. So like you can use them in multiple situations, and that's especially going to be the case when we look at these other ones. Could, may, might. Those are going to be interchangeable. But we are going to use must, right? That's going to be a necessity, and it's going to be something that has to happen. So similarly, going to your question, if we look at our only semi-modal verb here, need. It depends on the situation. You can use must. Yes, it depends on the situation, but you can use must most of the time. I must go to the doctor. I must see my friend. It's something that has to be done. So that's what we're going to do. So that must be done. So need is the same way. Need can be used in the same situation as must. I need to go to the doctor. I need to go to sleep, right? So that's what we call a semi-modal verb, because it can be used as a modal verb and it can be used as a regular verb. It's not always a modal verb. But for example, I need sleep. Need is going to be describing our main verb sleep. And it's used as a modal verb in this case. I need sleep. So it's going to explain still our main verb. And it's going to explain that it needs 100% certainty. I need sleep. You could also say, I must sleep. So need can have third person S. Yes, it can. He needs sleep. And that is why this is a semi-modal verb. So, for example, you need to try this soda. We're going to use to try in our full infinitive form. And the purpose of this one is to show the necessity or the obligation, similar to must. And you could say, I need to sleep. That's correct. It is correct to say, I need to sleep. I need sleep. Same one. If the difference between I need sleep and I need to sleep is because when you say I need to sleep, that means I need to go to bed right now. But when you say I need sleep, it's more general and you're saying I need to sleep more often. I need more sleep, right? I need to sleep more regularly. So it's general versus specific. But with need, it's still 100% yes. That's very good. And these are very good. Oh, yes. Sleep is a noun in that case. Yes. Very good. Very good. These are great questions. These are very good questions. You're thinking about these modal verbs in the right way. And remember, need as a semi-modal verb. So it's going to be a little bit different. But had better, all right, we're going to use had better to advise. And someone said before in the chat and talking about has to. And it's the same type of situation. I just didn't put all of our modal verbs, or we'll never get through all of them. So, modal verbs, yes, we do need modal verbs in communication. That's very good. So, had better. Yes, you had better wear your sweater, right? She had better bring an umbrella. Okay? This had better, that is advice. It's something that should be done, right? And I'm using should, which I know is another modal verb, but it's something that is likely should happen. That is what had better is, right? It's advice. It's advice. I had better. Okay? So she had better bring an umbrella. Okay? And the same, we can use it again, right? We had better leave the park soon. It's going to be all used in a advice something. You had better study more, right? You had better try to you had better try this soda, right? That's something that it's advice. It's something that you need to. It can be used the same as has to, right? It can be the same as has to. Okay, we'll get to the difference between should and had better as well, right? I had better not go there. Yes, yes, you could use the negative form of that as well. So had better, right? It's more certainty. It's more certainty than should. And the way I wrote these, right? The way I wrote these up here is in order of certainty. So the reason we're going to use had better over should is because had better is more certain. It's let's say 75% certain. You had better do this. That's more certain than should. You should do something. And we'll get to should here in a second. But remember, our modal verbs, we're going to use them in order of probability or something that needs to happen. So must, right? Must and need, think of as 100%. So, oh, okay. Has better versus had better. The reason why is because that modal verb had better is what we use it. So we wouldn't ever say I has better or he has better. It's always I had better. Because the way that the verb works together, we're going to use that had in past tense as a full modal verb had better. So we wouldn't say has better. Good question though. And no problem. If you're late or if you're just joining us for this lesson, this is all going to be recorded and posted onto the Cable YouTube channel. So you can go ahead and rewatch this lesson, or if you have to leave, you can go back and rewatch it as well. So good question. So we will never say has better. We always say had better. Good question. Okay. Yes, you had better get your umbrella before you leave. Very good. That's very correct. Okay. So had better, yes, it's had better is very common in the U.S. in the United States. I had better go check my car. I had better go look over there. Okay, that's very common. It might not be in the U.K. I personally have never been to the United Kingdom, so I am not entirely sure. So yes, you could also use it for negative as well. I had better not stay up late today. I'd better not have another cookie. So you can use that as well. Okay, so let's look at can. So can is going to be permission or possibility. And we're going to think of that as a lot more like 50%, right? I can do something. So she can play the piano, right? It's a possibility. She can do that. She's not doing that right now, right? So can is always a possibility, right? Or permission. So that is going to be something that's not happening right now. It's happening in the future. But we're using can to explain this main verb and when it's going to happen. Okay? So if I say I play the piano, right? That just means that I do that, right? It's not a possibility, right? I play the piano. That just happens. If I say I can play the piano or she can play the piano, then we're using that as a modal verb to talk about the possibility of her being able to do that. So to be able means that is something that's possible in the future, right? So if I pick up my water bottle, I pick up my water bottle. You see that's happening right now. But if I say I can pick up my water bottle, I'm not doing that right now. But you saw that I could do that, right? I can do that. That's something in the future. It's a possibility, right? She can cook a cake. That's correct. That's exactly right. It's a possibility of something in the future that can happen or something that you have done, right? So I can. So it's also for permission. So if I'm talking to someone and they want to talk to me, I can say, they can call me tomorrow. That's permission for something to happen tomorrow. They can call me tomorrow. So we're using can as both a possibility and a permission. So at the beginning of the lesson today, I say, you can type in the chat. That's permission to do that. You can type in the chat. But that's different than must, right? If I say you must type in the chat, then that's not permission, that's an obligation. And that's the difference here between can and must, or must and can and need, right? It's permission. I can do that, right? So that's what a permission or possibility for can. Now, should, right? Should is something a little bit lesser obligation, right? You should post in the chat, right? You should do that. So that's going to be a lesser obligation than in must and need and can, right? So we're going to have to think, you should, like I say, I should go to sleep, right? Yes, it could also be used to offer a suggestion. You should, so I should go to sleep, or you should see a doctor, right? That's a suggestion. That's something that we're offering that you could do, right? You might want to do that, right? That's you should. I should go to sleep. But that's different than when I say I must, right? I must go to sleep. That is happening right now. I need to go to sleep. That's going to be different than should. Should is more of a suggestion. It's a 50%. You should do that, right? You might not. You might not do that, but you should. Good. So I should be able to do that, right? So so I see a question there. I am able to carry this box. Can we use be able to? So you could say I am able to carry. Yeah. So you wouldn't say you would say am is the conjugation of be there. So it's a good question. You should comb your hair before you leave. Yes, that's very correct. We should work harder, right? We should work harder. So that is going to that's going to be a not an obligation, but a suggestion, right? A suggestion. You should. But that's always going to be a suggestion, right? It's not permission. You could say, you could ask it as a question, like, should I see a doctor, right? That's a question. Should I see a doctor? And with all of these modals, our question is going to be our modal first, then the subject I, and then the main verb. Should I see a doctor, right? Modal first, should, then subject I, and then main verb see. Should I see a doctor? And that's going to be with all of our verbs, right? Must I see a doctor? You can use it that way, right? Can I see a doctor? That's going to be the same as well. And had better, because that is a semi-modal verb, you can't say had better I see a doctor. That's always going to go in the middle. So that would not work, right? Had better I see a doctor, not a sentence. But should I see a doctor? Should I try that? Right. For example, you must go to the market. That's exactly right. You must go to the market versus I should go. You should go to the market. Two different. Very good. So, polite suggestion. Yes, should is not a polite suggestion. That's a very good question. The polite suggestion is going to be could. Could is going to be our slight suggestion. Our polite suggestion. That's hard to say. Our polite suggestion is going to be could or may or might. Okay, so we're going to talk about these three now: could, may, might, because it's not rude. It's not a rude suggestion to say should, but it's something that you need to know the person more before you say should. Or can is that's permission though, not a suggestion, right? And it's not rude, but like you can go over there. It's informal. It's very informal. Yes, that's a good question. That's a good answer. It's can is informal. Should is more. It's more not as much a suggestion as more of it's like you are use that with your when you have authority over someone, right? You should go do that because that's a lot more than it's a lot more informal. It's a lot more formal, but it's a lot more. Sorry, the word I'm looking for is it's a lot more. You have a lot more work over someone else. You have it's a lot more. You would a parent or a teacher would say that to their student. So that's what we're going to do with should or with your friends. Yes, you wouldn't want to talk to a stranger and say you should do that because that's going to make it seem like you're being bossy, right, over someone that you don't know. So friends, a parent, child. So that's exactly a situation. Yeah, parents, child. You should go. You should go talk to them, right? Or a parent may say you must go do that, right? So could, right? Could well, you can use it in a couple of different possibilities. Polite permission, and I'll show you a question here for that. So polite permission, you could say, "Could I have a cookie?" Right? Could I have a cookie? And that's going to be right polite permission. You could also say that with may and might. And may is going to be more often used in a question. Then you say, may I have a cookie? Right? May I have a cookie? Could I have a cookie? Those are both going to be polite permission. May is going to be the most polite. Okay? May is going to be the most polite. May I? And that's a lot more formal, right? May I have a cookie? Is a lot more formal and polite. So this is may I know where you are from? Yeah, you could say that, but you would probably ask that like more may is more like something physical happening. May I come in? Yes. That is going to be so you would just say where are you from? That would be more of a question without using a modal verb. Would you mind? Yes, you could also say would you mind? But that's more of a phrasal verb than it is a modal. So it's a different question, but yes, you could also use that politely. But remember, some of this is going to be these are just modal verbs today. So there's other ways to say these questions, but you're going to use these as modal verbs, right? So could I have a cookie? Okay, that's going to be our modal question. Remember, our modal verb first, our subject, and then our main verb. That's going to be our question formula always. Could I have a cookie? May I have a cookie, right? Can I have a cookie? And if you're asking it as a question, right? Like if you want to know whether I should or not, should I have a cookie? Right? You can ask it that way as well. Okay. So that's very good. Okay, so that's going to be could, right? But we can also use could, and this is different, as our past ability, right? Could is also a past ability. So that is going to be something that we used to be able to do in the past, but we cannot any longer, right? When I was young, I could stay up all night. That's a past ability, and that's the only modal verb here that we talk about. I could, right? So that is going to be our possibility. I can't stay up all night anymore, but I could, right? When I was younger, I could stay up all night. Good. Um, when I was a child, I could play basketball. That's right. When I was a child, I could play basketball. Very good. It's exactly right. It's our past ability, something that happened in the past. I could do that. Very good. So remember, we can use that could for polite permission, for possibility. You could go to the store, or past ability. And remember, could versus should. Could is more polite, and it's more of a suggestion, right? It's a polite suggestion. Should is more direct. You should go to the store, right? That's a 50%. That's a more obligation, right? You could go to the store. Is it's a much more polite, and more of an offering suggestion of things that are possible. You could go to the store. So if your friend asks you, yeah, I don't know what to do today, right? I'm bored. I don't know what to do today. Well, I could give a suggestion and say, you could play basketball, right? That's a suggestion. You could go on a walk. But if I go up this ladder, right? If I go up these modal ladders and I say, you should go on a walk, well, they're going to take that as that's something that you're suggesting that they need to do, right? Or you must go on a walk. That is something to say that's an obligation. You have to do that, right? So this could versus should, is to make sure we know when to use that, right? You should use sunscreen. Yes, that's something that probably should happen, right? But if you say you could use sunscreen, right, it's a lot more polite. So it depends on whether we think that someone like how much we want them to do that, right? How much we want them to do some sort of activity. You should do that. Well, they're going to think that that is more of a demand. You could do that. It's an option. So it's a good way to think about could versus should. Could is an option. Option. Should is more of a obligation. Okay. Versus can and need and must. Those are much higher obligations. So let's talk about may and might. Okay, may and might. These are interchangeable modal verbs. So they're polite permission and they're interchangeable. May, right? So if I want to use it as a question, may I please have some water? Okay, may I please have some water? So that is going to be polite permission. May I? So that's even more polite than could. Could I please have some water? Yes. May I please have some water? It's just a more formal, polite way to ask something. And you don't normally do that unless you're trying to be in a very formal business setting or you're trying to be very, very gracious or very nice to someone that you're talking with. So that's going to be may, right? But it's also, right, it's also something, it's a maybe less than 50% chance, around 50% chance of something that will happen. So uh, may is, so I see in the question we have is may more polite than might? So yes, but we also just don't use, might is not used very often as a question. So I can say, might I please have some water? But people will kind of look at you a little bit different because you wouldn't use might there. You can, but for the questions, we're almost always going to use may. We're always going to use the term may because that's what that's what we're. It's just a little bit more polite. It's more common. You can use might, but you don't have to. But you don't often use that. So, um, so we may drive to the ocean today. Okay, so we may drive to the ocean today. This may, right? We might not. We may not either, right? It's not a certainty. It's lower on this because it's less certainty. We may drive to the ocean today. So it's similar to we could drive to the ocean today, but could is more. It's that possibility. And it's the same here, right? We may. So the hard part with these modal verbs is, right, is you can use them in a very similar way. You can use could at the same time that you use may, and may and might are going to be the same, right? If I say they might be late to class, I can also say they may be late to class. So that's going to be the exact same, right? May and might are interchangeable except for a question, right? I may go to the city center. Yes, that's exactly right. I may go to the city center, but I may not. So it's about a 50%, right? Maybe less than 50%. I may do that. So you could question is, do you want to use may for an indirect refusing? You don't, you would probably, you could say, I might do that. It's usually sometimes a polite way. Yeah, I might check that out. I may do that. You could use it as a polite way to say usually no. So you could say maybe. Yeah, I maybe. The difference is maybe isn't a modal verb in the same way. So you wouldn't say I maybe go to the store, right? It's not a modal verb. So you have to use might in the modal verb in that form. They have the same meaning. That's a very good question. Maybe has the same meaning, but it's not a modal verb and it can't be used in the same way. So I can say they might be late to class, but I can't say they may be late to class, right? Because that would be a different word. They may be late to class. Okay, so good. So so if we use might, do we need to use like might be or just might? So just might would be used as an implied modal verb. So if I say, "Are you going to the store?" and I say, "I just might," we're still implying I just might go to the store. So just is just going to be an adverb there to describe our modal verb might. Just might is you still need your main verb at the end of it. It's a very good question, but we want to say, yeah, might I make a suggestion? You can say that, right? But like I said before, it works the same way as may, but we're going to use may more often. So if I say, might I make a suggestion? It sounds very formal, and it sounds like something that you would say in maybe more of the 1800s than you would today. So if I'm in public and I say, may I make a suggestion, people would be listening more often. And if I say, might I make a suggestion, they kind of look at me and say, oh, okay, yeah, sure, I guess so. So it's possible. It's still possible, but it's not something we use often. So I just wanted to point that out with the difference between may and might for a question, but they both work. So you're all asking very good questions today. Very good questions. So how can we use in an if clause? It would be the same. It would be the same as a regular sentence. If you go to the store, could you grab me something? Could you grab me a water? Right? If you go to the store, could you grab me a water? It's going to be the same way. And that's also going to get a little bit into the category of different types of clauses. So it's a good question though. Like a conditional, right? So remember, could and would, they both work in conditional senses as well, and that's another topic that we'd have to get into. But it's good questions. You're asking right questions, and I believe there is a Cambly lesson that also talks about conditionals, at least one. So if you are interested in talking about conditionals, especially in if clauses, that's a great lesson to go back and take a look at, because that's going to be used in a different sense than just as a pure modal. It still works as a modal, but a modal is a building block before you get to a conditional. So it's a good question, but I don't want to get too much into that. So so there are other modals. There are a lot more modals than just these ones, but these are some of the more common modals. So the last modal that I want to talk about is will. Okay, so will is going to be a future obligation. Okay, so And we use will, right, for all of our future tenses. But we use will as a modal verb for a future obligation. Okay. He will be at my birthday party. I put this at the bottom because it's a little bit different, but will is 100%. Okay. It's a different situation than all of these, but will is 100%. He will be at my party, right? I will pick you up from the store. That's 100% that it's going to happen, right? It's an obligation, but it's a future obligation. All right? I will pick you up from the store. Yes, you could say I'm going to. I'm going to pick you up from the store, right? But that's not a modal verb in that sense. Because going to is a different verb, right? I am going to, right? Am isn't our modal verb. So the difference between will and going to, they have the same meaning, right? They have the same meaning, but will is our modal verb in this sense because will is describing the obligation of pick, right? Have to, right? You could say have to. I saw that before, right? I have to go there. But remember, that isn't necessarily in the future. That could be right now. I have to teach a Cambly lesson, right? That's right now. So good. I will write my will before I die. Yes, those are two different types of wills, though. One's a noun, talking about what we're going to do with our things, and the other one is a modal verb, right? So it's a good question. So some of these modal verbs, you can use other tenses and other opportunities. That is going to be, but that's going to be a different type of construction. So going to, yes, is something that's going to happen in the future. It's going to rain. But that is a different construction, right? And will can also be used differently. It will rain, right? But that's not being used as a modal verb because we're going to use that modal verb before another verb, right? And rain is a noun in that sentence. It will rain. It's different than I will pick you up because this is using in the sense of as a modal. So the hard part is will can be used differently, but we're just talking about it being used as a modal. Okay, so good questions. Okay, so that is yes. So something will does mean something different. Okay, so will uses not planned. So it's a little bit different from an obligation. So no, it is an obligation there. So I will go do that, right? I will see you tomorrow. That's an obligation. Something I will happen, right? So that is going to be, it is an obligation, something that's certain to happen, right? It's not necessarily an obligation of like, I have to go to the store, right? It's just, it's a 100% certainty. So very good question. Okay. So one other thing to remember about all of these modal verbs is they can also be negative. So I didn't want to write them all out because it will be too much, but they can also be negative, right? I cannot, right? I may not, right? We can use the exact same sentences, but negative, right? So if I say, when I was younger, I could not stay up all night. We can use that in the same way, right? That we can use that just negative. So pretty much all of these we can use with a negative as well, right? You had better not eat ice cream before dinner, right? That we can use negatives as well in that. So very good. Okay. So let's do a couple of, let's try a couple on our own, okay? So if you have to say, right, I want you to give me a sentence here, right? So if you must do the laundry tomorrow, how would you write that in the sentence, right? If you must do the laundry, right? If it's an obligation, you must do the laundry tomorrow. How could you write a sentence around that? Right? If you're going to do the laundry tomorrow, how could you write a sentence about that? Let's see. How could we write a sentence about doing the laundry tomorrow? You must do the laundry tomorrow. Okay, yeah, you must do the laundry tomorrow. I will do the laundry tomorrow. Very good. Very good. Yeah, well, okay, so we use a contraction there, right? I'll do the laundry tomorrow. That means I will do, right? Good. I will do the laundry tomorrow. Very good. Very good. You must get okay. So that one, right? So we would say that's close. You must do the laundry tomorrow, right? You must do the laundry tomorrow. So you should do, right? That isn't a must, right? That's not an obligation. Should is a suggestion. You probably should, but you won't, right? I must do the laundry tomorrow. Very good. I need to do the laundry tomorrow. Okay, yeah. So but need to is going to be different, right? That's not going to be a modal verb, but that you could also say that. Good. I have to. I have to do the laundry tomorrow. Okay, very good. All right. So I wrote the similar sentence, right? I will do the laundry tomorrow. That's very good, right? It's an obligation. I will do the laundry tomorrow. Good job. Good job, everyone. Okay. So let's say if you let someone use your bike, how could you how would you tell someone, right? If you want to let someone use your bike, how would you tell them that, right? What sentence would you say, right? If they say, "Can I borrow your bike?" What would you say? Hmm. Good. Yes, very good. I'm saying that you can use my bike. That's very good. That's exactly what I wrote, right? You can. Very good. We're going to say can there. Exactly right. You can use my bike. That's very good because that's right. That's our permission, right? Permission there. You can use my bike, right? That's what we would say, right? If my friend says, "Can I borrow your bike?" He's, "Yeah, you can use my bike." Very good. That's exactly right. Okay. Let's try one more. Okay. So if you wanted to give advice, right? What about for advice for learning English? What would you say? What would your advice be? And how would you use a modal verb here to give advice? How would you use a modal verb to give advice for learning English? Good. You should learn English. Good. You had better learn English. You should learn English. That's exactly right. It's exactly right. You had better. You should. Good. I'm seeing a lot of those. Seeing a lot of you shoulds and you had better. You can use either one, right? You can use either one. I use that. I use had better there, right? You had better practice, right? You had better practice if you're going to learn English. If you should learn, that's very good. You should practice. You had better practice. You can use either one. Very good. Very good. All right. You should learn. You had better practice. Great job, everybody. Well, thank you all so much for practicing with me today. I hope this was a helpful lesson. These modal verbs are difficult, but they're very important because we use them all the time in English. Just remember, when you're using a modal verb, we're always going to use it before a main verb. We're not going to change its tense, and it's going to inform what this main verb was. So I hope this is a super helpful lesson. If you missed any part of this lesson, you can go back and watch it again. You can watch it on any type of our platforms. We have all sorts of lessons on there, hundreds of lessons. If you're new to Cambly, Cambly is a great opportunity and a great tool to help improve your English, whether you're just starting or whether you have been learning English for years and years and you're practicing for the IELTS or any other type of English test. We have hundreds and hundreds of tutors. If you use the code GO LIVE, you can have up to 36% off all of our Cambly packages. So or our year-long subscriptions. So thank you so much for joining me today. If you missed any of this lesson, please go back and watch it on the Cambly YouTube channel. Remember, you can learn English and you should practice. And it was so great to be with you all today. Thank you so much. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.